Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out this mono-white equipment deck featuring Cloud, Midgar, Mercenary as our commander, and part of the reason why I wanted to do an equipment deck is that we have access to all the various swords through the Arena Anthology expansion, so we finally get to play with Sword of Feast and Famine, giving +2/+2 protection from black and from green, and if the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and we get to untap all lands we control. So an incredibly powerful effect that has seen play across multiple formats. We also have Sword of Light and Shadow, giving pro-white and pro-black, and if we hit the opponent we gain 3 and get to return a creature from our graveyard to our hand. And then Sword of War and Peace is the last new addition I'm also running, giving pro-red and pro-white. If we hit the opponent, we get to deal damage to them equal to the number of cards they have in hand, whereas we gain life for each card we have in hand. So that's another very neat ability. And of course, all these swords have great synergy with Cloud, as we get to tutor up whatever protection we need in certain matchups, and as long as Cloud is equipped, if an ability of Cloud or an equipment attached to it would trigger, that ability triggers an additional time, so that can also get out of hand very quickly. So Cloud gives us access to this enormous toolbox of equipment we can search up depending on the matchup. So if we take a look at our deck breakdown, by far the largest category are going to be the equipment. Then we also have a small ramp section, mostly the Moxen can give us a nice mana boost. We now also have access to Mox Opal, so that can speed up things if we have 3 or more artifacts in play to enable Metalcraft. And then we also have a small protection section, mostly 1 mana creatures that can be sacrificed to give indestructible until end of turn, or that can tap and activate to give protection from the color of our choice until end of turn. And those now also include Mother of Runes, which is another classic from Magic's past, and a very effective one since it can also target itself, so it can be very annoying to play against as soon as you get to untap with it. Then we've got our cheap interaction, mostly 1 mana answers to opposing creatures, so we can keep the curve low, answer the opponent's early threats, and then spend most of our mana deploying and equipping our various artifacts. And then of course the largest section, as we discussed, are the equipment themselves. Then we've got plenty of creatures besides Cloud that we can also equip, and many of them also have equipment synergies, either letting us equip things for free, maybe tutoring up additional equipment, or giving us a discount. So those are also pretty important for the plan to work out. And then our miscellaneous section has some more enchantments that can also let us equip things for free, which can also come in handy when it comes to equipping some of the more expensive spells. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration, I mentioned the Moxen. Chrome Mox needs to exile a white card that's not an artifact, so we can't exile any of our equipment to it, but if we have another spare white card in hand, it can give us a nice little mana boost. There's Mox Amber, which is great with a 2 mana legend, and there's some other legendary creatures throughout to enable it. And then Mox Opal requires 3 artifacts. Could be running some artifact lands to complement it as well, but part of the reason why I've got a lot of planes is also for one of my removal spells, Lay Down Arms, which requires us to have lots of planes in play, and artifact lands can also be vulnerable to artifact removal, so it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. Then a Knight of the White Orchid, if our opponent is ramping, can help us ramp as well, and then a 2/2 First Strike is not a bad recipient for these various equipment. And then there's Arcane Signet, which can immediately tap for a white mana, so we can still cast something afterwards. Cannot play any of the new signets or talismans, since those have multiple colors, so they fall outside of our commander's color identity, but we do get to run the Iron Crag, which can make a colorless and can maybe transform into an equipment if we play a legend, so also has good synergy. And then Worn Power Stone at 3 mana, if we get to untap with it, will make double colorless, so that can also help deploy some of our more expensive equipment. And then our protection creatures include Giver of Runes. The upside here over Mother of Runes is that it can also give protection from colorless, which can sometimes come in handy against artifact creatures or against Eldrazi. Then we've got the classic Mother of Runes. The upside here is that it can also target itself to protect against removal. Then we also have Skrelv, which is similar to the previous creatures, can also make it harder for the opponent to block. And then we've got our indestructible effects with Selfless Savior if we sacrifice it. Zac will cost 1 mana but also gives us an extra counter, can maybe even move an equipment around. And then Aloran's Escape at instant speed can also protect our artifacts, making them indestructible and giving them hexproof, and we get to scry 1 as well. Then our removal at 1 mana includes Curse of Silence, which is going to be naming the opponent's commander, so that can slow it down. We've got the Hardlight Containment, needs to enchant an artifact we control, but then we get to exile an opposing creature, and the enchanted artifact we control also has a ward 1. I'm running this over a card like Sheltered by Ghosts, which also makes a lot of sense in this strategy, since we're kind of going all in on one creature and trying to protect it, but it's going to be a lot easier for the opponent to remove a creature and get their stuff back, as opposed to destroying an artifact, so that's what I'm hoping for. Then a Lay Down Arms is excellent with all the planes in the mana base. There's Portable Hole and Seam Rip to exile opposing non-land permanents with mana value 2 or less. There's Swords to Plowshares, of course, which is the best 1 mana option. Get Lost can also hit enchantments and planeswalkers. Loran can only destroy artifacts or enchantments. And then Skyclave Apparition, another versatile answer to opposing non-land, non-token permanents with mana value 4 or less, and also gives us a creature to equip afterwards. Then taking a look at our equipments, at 1 mana there's Colossus Hammer, which we're usually trying to equip for free, otherwise it's a little bit expensive, but can be very powerful and very cheap to deploy. We've got Lava Spur Boots for 1 extra power, ward 1 and haste, also very cheap to play and equip. Lost Jite can also maybe help untap our lands or give us additional +1 counters. Shadow Spear for lifelink and trample, can also maybe use it to remove hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Plate Armor gets a discount through Alchemy, would probably still play it at 3 mana, as it gives +3/+3 and ward 1, but gets a discount for equipping equal to the number of other equipment we control, so we can usually equip this for free. Then there's the Swiftfoot Boots for hexproof and haste. We've got Trailblazer's Boots for non-basic Landwalk, so that can make our creature unblockable in most matchups. There's a Celestial Armor if we need a way to protect our creatures, maybe at instant speed thanks to Flash, and can also give flying going forward. Anduril is +3/+1 and also triggers twice if we attach it to Cloud, so we get to make 4 Spirit tokens. There's Buster Sword, of course, the signature equipment of Cloud, providing card advantage if we get to connect. Mithril Coat itself is indestructible, can flash it in, equipping a legendary creature, making that indestructible as well. And then we've got various swords. We mentioned Feast and Famine. We've got Fire and Ice, giving pro-red and pro-blue. If we hit, we get to deal 2 damage and to draw a card. So another one of the better swords. Forge and Frontier is pro-red and green. Get to exile the top 2 cards, play an extra land that turn, and play spells from exile. Also very nice if we get to trigger it multiple times. And then we mentioned Light and Shadow, as well as War and Peace. Could be running even more of the swords, since we almost have all of them on Arena now, but I just like to have at least 1 of each protection, and then these are the most powerful ones in my opinion that synergize the best in this deck. Then a Leyline Axe we can put in play for free if it starts out in our opening hand, giving Double Strike and Trample, and Double Strike is also very nice with all the swords, as we can maybe trigger them multiple times, so then with Cloud we could be triggering a sword's ability 4 times in 1 turn. Then there's the Aether Spark as an equipment planeswalker that we can also tutor up, attach to our creatures to increase its loyalty, give us additional +1 counters, and it also triggers twice of Cloud's ability, so we get to increase its loyalty twice if we get a single attack in, so we can quickly build up the -10 to add 10 mana of any one color, or simply draw some cards with a -5. Then the Arsenal also scales with the number of artifacts we control and has Job Select, so comes attached to a hero. So then if we're facing a deck with a lot of removal, we've got an extra creature to work with, and can also be a nice one to get with Stoneforge Mystic, which we'll get to in a second. And then Genji Glove to give us additional attack steps, as well as Double Strike can also be a fun finisher. And then our creatures include Esper Sentinel as a cheap threat to tax the opponent, and can also maybe increase its power with our equipment to increase that tax even more. There's Steiner as a lifelink creature that scales with the number of equipment we control. Then a Frodo, when it enters or attacks, can attach an equipment with mana value 2 or 3 to it for free. It's also very synergistic with the various swords. Kemba can attach any equipment to it for free when it enters, including maybe a Colossus Hammer, which we cannot equip with Frodo. Then there's the Lion Sash, both an equipment and a creature, can reconfigure it, but can also act as a graveyard hate in certain graveyard matchups. Then we've got SRAM to draw extra cards when we cast our equipment spells. Stoneforge Mystic, which I mentioned earlier, similar to Cloud, can tutor up whatever equipment we want when it enters, but unlike Cloud, it can also put those equipment into play by just paying 2 mana and tapping the Stoneforge Mystic, which also plays around counter spells, so that's especially powerful with any living weapon type equipment, like the Arsenal, which comes attached to a hero. Do not have Batterskull on Arena yet, but maybe one day, and there's some other cards we could play along those lines. And then we've got Voice of Victory, as well as the Grand Abolisher to shut down the opponent from casting any spells in our turn. With Abolisher, we also shut down activated abilities, because it would be pretty bad if our opponent can just spend 1 or 2 mana removing our creature in response to us trying to equip it. So these help play around those cards. And then we also have a Donitha, which gives all our equipment a 1 mana discount when we cast them, and also has some very nice keywords built in that we can leverage. And then we've got Arwen, which can also discount or equip abilities. We've got the Weapons Vendor, which can just pay 1 mana each turn to attach an equipment. And then Halvar can also help us move around equipment that we already have attached and gives our equipped creatures a double strike. Could also play Sword of the Realms every now and then. And then Donitha, Benalia's Hope, can also attach something for free from our graveyard or from our hand as a 4/4 with First Strike, Vigilance, and a lifelink. And then finally I'm also running Beatrix as another way to move a whole bunch of equipment around for free, so that can also be quite useful. And then last but not least, our miscellaneous section has some more powerful enchantments, land tax especially for on the draw, as we'll be able to consistently find additional planes to put in hand so we never run out. And then we've got Sigarda's Aid as the cheapest way to attach our equipment for free, can also play them at instant speed to maybe catch the opponent off guard. And then Forge Anew can return an equipment from our graveyard to the battlefield, but more importantly can also pay 0 mana rather than pay the equip costs of our first equip ability each turn, so that's mostly while we're running it. And then our mana base has plenty of planes. We've got Monumental Henge, which can maybe find additional historic spells, which include legendary creatures or artifacts. Aiganjo as removal. Of course, we're also going to have Ancient Tomb, which can make double colorless, very useful for running out some of our equipment. Cavern of Souls to make our creatures uncounterable, usually we'll name human. And then Inventor's Fair can also occasionally gain some life or tutor up an extra artifact. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, facing Arwen, green-white, kind of life gain, indestructible counters. Can go in a few different directions. We already have pro-green, Donitha to discount equipment. Yeah, this is reasonable. Opponent should have some non-basics for the boots as well. Although might be redundant if we already have pro-green and pro-white. And then which white sword to get. Don't expect too many creatures to end up in the graveyards. I probably don't need Light and Shadow. So then War and Peace. And then playing Donitha lets me maybe play sword and equip on turn 4 if we don't miss our line drop. And our opponent's got the Mother of Runes. Okay, Cloud it is. And then I should start by playing the white sword, most likely. So we can get past Mother of Runes and perhaps Arwen. If they play a mono-green creature, I might have to equip both swords to get past the Mother of Runes. Anthem gives +1/+1. I would have taken the trade if they attacked. Now we can play Donitha. And now I can no longer attack since they could block and Mother of Runes can target itself. So it is a very good card in creature matchups. And against removal once you get to untap with it as well. Just a good card in general. Okay, so next turn we're gearing up to War and Peace. Equip. If we equip Cloud, we get to trigger the ability twice. Although Donitha has some useful keywords. Alright, never mind. Now with the Contaminator, they also have a green creature back. I'm still down to play War and Peace and equip, so we have protection from white going forward, which is more likely to represent removal. I guess there's also the boots to make unblockable, but won't be able to combine it with the sword. So, yeah, got a couple options here. But I'm liking War and Peace equip onto Cloud. Although maybe I should be going all in on Donitha thanks to the lifelink. Although War and Peace also gains life. So not an easy decision. But especially the Forge and Frontier, if we get to trigger it twice with Cloud, could go pretty crazy. No attacks. There's Arwen. The Contaminator can also proliferate the extra indestructible counter. And more counter synergy. Yeah, double blocking would not work out well for me. So they get to proliferate. But now they only have white creatures on defense, so I don't even have to Forge and Frontier. The Mechanist Arsenal also quite good. This is 2 to equip. Beatrix can also equip things for free next turn, so I could also just decide to dump as many artifacts in play as possible. Maybe should not have played land yet, so we gain more with War and Peace. Or I can just go Forge and Frontier, equip, exile a few extra spells, and hopefully hit some land drops that I get to deploy. Although that's where the Vigilance on Donatha also would have been useful. If I play an equip, I guess there's still a chance I can move a sword back onto Donatha to play defense. So I'm still gonna try this first. So they can block. I can play Underill. Moxamber is also useful. Two mana Underill looks good. And then... yeah, if I move this onto Donatha, they can still use Mother of Runes on Contaminator or Arwen to attack past it. So then my best option could be to move the Forge and Frontier just to soak up some damage, or I can keep going all in on Cloud, which has been working pretty well for me. And even if they play some artifact creature that's colorless, we've got the boots. Flowering pumps their team up some more. Hardened Bonds finds a creature. So they are about to gain a lot of life back. So it's a bit of a weird race right now. But hopefully Forge and Frontier, providing 4 extra cards each turn, is gonna help us overpower them, but yeah. Their creatures also keep getting bigger thanks to the Proliferate. So could start by just attacking. If I play Arsenal for 4 mana, I guess I could still equip it, so that's a lot of extra damage. Alright, that might be worthwhile. Could also move it onto Donatha, but then they can just jump with Mother of Runes. And I'm not gonna have the mana to play the boots and equip that as well. So we'll start here. I guess never mind. Because of the protection from white, I can actually move the white equipment onto it. So that's kind of an awkward interaction. Could still move it onto Donatha, force them to use Mother of Runes, and then if we draw a removal with Forge and Frontier, that could help out. But by protecting itself, of course, they also deny the life gain. You get to make lots of spirits. So probably gonna see Mother of Runes protect herself. But then I could maybe top deck a Swords to Plowshares and still cast it. I guess I can also activate Arwen. But then I do get to gain the life at least. War and Peace triggers a bunch. Opponent's got 4 cards in hand, so that's 8 damage. And Containment, but the opponent left Mother of Runes available. So this can exile a creature, but yeah, opponent's got shields up. So then Sigarda's Aid. Is there any point in playing the Containment? Probably not. But I guess it doesn't really hurt me either. So can put it on the Mox. Targets, let's say Mother Runes. Maybe they don't know that they can target herself. They know. Alright. Could have also put this on an equipment that we don't want them to destroy, so it has an extra ward 1. Would have been reasonable. Now we can play the boots at instant speed, so that's also gonna grow Danitha some more. And yeah, there's Knight of Autumn, so that gets to blow up one of my swords. Although we now also have some flying creatures. Goes for War and Peace, interestingly enough. And they're still attacking with Arwen and Contaminator. Do they use Mother of Runes? Could also trump Arwen with a hero, but that doesn't seem needed. Alright, so that happens. May as well play the boots to gain some more life. And then we can equip Cloud, which is probably the creature we want to make unblockable now. So our opponent's going to gain a bunch of life, but we also have a lot of damage on the way back. Plus Inventor's Fair could also tutor up something to give us an extra attack step, comes to mind. Opponent's got a lot of cards in hand, although we no longer have the damage from War and Peace, I suppose. Alright, so damage happens, opponent keeps up Mother of Runes. They are back up to 29. And our opponent scoops it up, alright, fair enough. Next turn could also move the arsenal onto Cloud, make it unblockable, give it a lot of extra power. And then, yeah, not sure what to do with Inventor's Fair, but we can probably figure something out. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with what looks like a keeper playing the mirror match. So Portable Hole can be an answer to an opposing Cloud. Get to start with Leyline Axe into Kemba, which is pretty strong. And then Sword of Feast and Famine may not be the best one for this specific matchup, but Cloud can get one with Protection from White, which is maybe what our opponent will do as well. Nope, goes for Underrail. We actually drew Sword of War and Peace, so we've got a few options here. I think we wait on Portable Hole until they equip Cloud, and then I could already go Kemba, suit up Leyline Axe. Yeah, that's probably fine. If they remove Kemba, I might need to get an equipment with Living Weapon. Opponent passes without doing anything, so that's a little suspicious. Maybe they have their own Eiganjo. Yeah, what else would make sense? I guess like a Mithril Coat making Cloud indestructible, soak up an attack. They still wouldn't have the mana to play and equip unless a Mox is involved. So I think I'm fine to attack, and then probably just play War and Peace, second main. Opponent's got a Teferi's Protection just to soak up the attack here. Fair enough. So, opponent stays at 25. And yeah, with Double Strike, the swords get even better, so hopefully we get a chance to connect. Sheltered by Ghosts, that's a good one. Although Portable Hole can exile Cloud and get our creature back, which can once again equip the Leyline Axe, but it would have Summoning Sickness. Seam Rip another answer, so got a few options. Could also target the Sheltered by Ghosts itself, so that we don't have to pay the ward. And then I get Kemba back. I can still suit it up with the Leyline Axe, and maybe next turn the sword, or first the sword and then the Leyline Axe. Upside of still exiling Cloud is that I can exile both creatures, and then they can't play and equip Underreal. So I think that's still gonna be the priority. Pay the ward. I imagine they send it back to the command zone, but we'll see. Suit up Leyline Axe, which is more expensive. And then I think I'm fine to just seam rip their only other creature. Hope they don't have removal, and then next turn we get to equip the sword. Opponent just casts Underreal without being able to equip it yet, but has Kemba, so that's only fair. But we're the first ones to attack, with Double Strike no less. Only basics, so the boots don't do much. But I can also play Sword of Feast and Famine, equip that, which would let me untap my lands. Or would we rather equip Sword of War and Peace? Yeah, I guess I would rather just Feast and Famine and discard both cards they have in hand. We have Double Strike, so even though they can block, it wouldn't be pretty. So get to untap my lands. Don't have any instants to cast here. I guess never mind. I can activate Kemba. And then that can suit up the Sword of War and Peace. Then regular damage. Opponent discards again. We untap. And then I can still play Cloud. And is there any removal I can get? Not that I can think of. Could just get another powerful equipment. Could get the Celestial Armor as protection. Yeah, that can be bad. And then I can keep this up at instant speed. And for now, pass. Skyclave, okay. Can maybe exile a sword as opposed to a creature. Goes for Sword of War and Peace, which we cannot protect. It's just a creature gaining hexproof and indestructible, so that works. But can we still figure out a way to present lethal here? Kemba makes 2 tokens. I can flash this in. Equip Cloud, I guess, is fine, and then just ambush Kemba. And yeah, opponent's gonna scoop it up here. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Meria, a red-green, kind of a combo deck with lots of artifacts. So Curse of Silence to slow them down is important. A land tax is likely to trigger since we're on the draw. So I've got some pretty decent 1-drops for the matchup. Although, yeah, we'll need a second white source, so maybe we need the land tax to trigger before we can cast Cloud. I'll try it. If our opponent can play a 1-mana ramp card, I'll be forced to already play the Curse, otherwise they can already deploy their commander next turn. It's just going to be a scrappling for now. So yeah, in that case, I could land tax and hope her opponent decides to run out a second land. This way we're guaranteed more planes, so I can both Curse and Sentinel. And then the red-green sword is ideal for the matchup, although as you can see our opponent's going to have lots of artifacts which can maybe still get around the protection. Now an energy refractor draws a card. Our opponent wants to just play a bunch of random artifacts that later can generate mana, so artifacts that draw a card when they enter are totally fine. Okay, so we'll get to trigger a land tax. And it's also just good to thin out the deck, even if we're going to maybe discard a few lands. curse named Meria. And a Sentinel, so our opponent getting double taxed here. And next turn, not opposed to playing the Power Stone to give us a bit more mana. And then what to get with Cloud, maybe a way to grant evasion in conjunction with a Forge and Frontier. Steel Seeker's a good one too. And the artifact lands are perfect with it as well. So it gets to immediately trigger. Leather Armor draws us a card, although it's in other planes. So trigger land tax, why not? And then still in favor of Power Stone. Discard a few planes to hand size. And then next turn with 6 mana, we could play Sword Equip, we could equip Aether Spark, play Cloud. Although now the kunai could also be used as removal. And it is a colorless source, so can get around protection. Opponent deciding to pay the tax. And the blade as well. And now Mox Amber. They don't have a legendary creature in play yet. Opponent failing to hit their land, but they found one. So if they draw a land next turn, they will be able to play Meria and start going off. So trigger a land tax. Might be the last time we do it. What makes the most sense? Opponent's got a 1/3 on defense, can deal 3 damage if they sack the kunai. So then I don't want to put too many eggs in the Sentinel basket. Instead we can go for Cloud, and then what's the best equipment I can get? I will have 4 mana left. Yeah, this is tricky. Could also just play Sword and Equip, force them to chump with Scrapling. And then next turn they can take out the Sentinel if they'd like. So that's not ideal. So maybe I do want to deploy a second creature, so I have more freedom in what to equip next turn. And then something like a Leyline Axe could be decent. Underhill can generate more creatures for me. Mithril Coat for Indestructible I could keep available, but then I'm going to be forced to flash it in at some point. Could go for Haste on the boots. So, I have a couple options. I guess I don't hate the boots. Protect Cloud here, and we can be more proactive. And then next turn we can maybe suit it up with the Sword or Aether Spark. Although I'm not going to be attacking for 2. The one upside, of course, of growing the Sentinel is that we also increase attacks if they play another non-creature spell. But our opponent would likely just sack the kunai first. Opponent with a bauble, so if Steel Seeker finds a land, they can still deploy Meria. Gets rid of a Chrome Mox, and then Research Desk, their opponent's giving up on Meria in the hopes of finding a land. And Ancient Tomb makes 2 mana, so they were actually closer to casting their commander than I thought. And then do I sack the curse? I could still find an answer to Meria, and then it could be useful to still have the extra taxation in play. There's an Agancho which we can maybe use, although I don't expect Meria to be attacking or blocking a whole lot. So next turn I have 7 mana, so Aether Spark with Cloud also triggers several times, so that could be a fine play. Inventor's Fair is also active, So we could use it to tutor up another artifact, including a removal spell like Portable Hole. So we do have that flexibility. So our opponent's deciding on the research desk between Prophetic Prism or Command Tower. Goes for Command Tower. So they can still play that next turn, I believe. And then for now they're just going to equip the Steel Seeker some more. 3-5. Can maybe block Cloud even with Aether Spark equipped. I'm going to keep thinning out the deck here. It feels so bad when you draw planes after searching so many up. So this has Hexproof from Monocolored, so we can't even target it with a Portable Hole. So yeah, this is probably going to require us to fly over at some point, which is something Inventor's Fair can also find. Although it feels pretty bad to have to search up another equipment right now. So Sword of Forge and Frontier is actually pretty good if we can get it going. But I assume our opponent's just jumping with a Scrappling for now. And then Abolisher also stops activated abilities for what it's worth. But we can attack first and see if they're willing to jump. Opponent does. Not too surprising. Steel Seeker grows. Play Abolisher and pass. Alright, so next turn opponent gets to finally play Meria, and with all those artifacts in play, that represents a lot of mana as well. Although that's two creatures that are both green, so Cloud can finally make some progress. I'll sack the Curse. Need to find some action. Plate Armor isn't bad. So opponent goes digging, finds Springleaf Drum. Just don't want him to find another cheap artifact creature. Yeah, Steel Seeker is definitely one of the better cards in this deck, just because of how many cards you get to see. And yeah, Ornithopter is what we needed to avoid. A free artifact creature, in fact, that can block Cloud. Maybe it's going to force me to get removal for it, but that feels pretty bad. So Meria exiles another card, finds a Life Seed. Doesn't look like they can pay the tax. Or I guess they did. Yeah, just tapping the Ornithopter, so now at least it's not gonna get in the way of Cloud. So they got to draft a card, which is a land. They got Strip Mine. Wow. Did not know that was an option here in the spellbook. So there's another way to get access to Strip Mine other than just drawing it. Or never mind, I guess our opponent just drew the Strip Mine separately. Yeah, that would have been pretty surprising to see this added in the spellbook. Okay, so they just drew a Strip Mine. I guess it can blow up my Inventor's Fair now. So no more life gain, no more tutor effect. So we need to make this turn count with Cloud, doubling the triggers, also good with the sword, and the Aether Spark. Let's keep thinning out the deck so we hopefully don't draw any more planes. How do we keep drawing planes? This is impressive. Alright, so play my lands, play Aether Spark. And then Plate Armor I can play and equip for free. Attack. Opponent takes 8. We get a bunch of triggers. Aether Spark's got 1,000,000 loyalty now. And we found a Get Lost. And a Stoneforge Mystic, so those are all good. So I can play the Cavern, although probably better off with the Plains. And then I can still play another land, since that triggered twice. So Get Lost, I can target Meria if I pay the ward, which is probably the play, or I can Stoneforge, get whatever equipment I want. But I think we need to just slow down Meria enough. Otherwise they could just win the game next turn. Now giving them 2 map tokens doesn't feel great. And we did, of course, lose the curse, so they can recast it for just 5 mana. But we'll see. Yeah, maybe destroying Meria wasn't actually all that great, given the map tokens. Ooh, Paradox Engine. Well, that pretty much goes infinite with Meria if you have a few artifacts in play, since they can make mana, exile more spells, cast them, untap everything, rinse and repeat. Yeah, Paradox Engine's a pretty busted card. It's banned in Commander, mostly because turns take too long once Paradox Engine is involved, but it also goes infinite with a few commanders in Brawl. Meria being one of them. There's Fiddlebender. Emery can sometimes go infinite with it as well. And then in green-white, there's the one that can search up additional legends. So there's a few commanders that are maybe problematic with Paradox Engine, although it's not a card you see as much as you might think. Alright, so now our opponent gets to kind of play with themselves a bit. Tezzret's a good addition for the archetype for sure. But yeah, opponent just getting to untap their artifacts gives him infinite mana, and Meria also generates infinite card draw. So, not sure what their win condition is, could just be a Craterhoof Behemoth at some point, or some other expensive artifact. But yeah, we're not getting another turn, that's for sure. Opponent gets a Soul Stealer Axe. Steel Seeker keeps triggering. My only hope is that our opponent takes too long to combo and times out, because it does take a lot of clicking to keep generating mana, keep activating, to exile more cards. So we'll see how far they get. Eye of Vecna can also draw cards, but that's not the limiting factor here. We did have a 21 loyalty Aether Spark, which could have made 10 mana next turn, or drawn some cards. Opponent found Boseiju, although I don't think they can channel it from exile, has to be in hand. There we see the finale, so yeah, that can just be their win condition. Cast it for X equals 10, and then they don't even need some crazy creature to search up, just bumping the team is enough. Opponent just cast finale for X equals 3 and concedes. So I'll take it, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happens. Maybe they misclicked and were trying to cast it for 10, or maybe, yeah, can't really be too sure here, but yeah, I guess that's why you played out. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Rhys the Redeemed, so green-white tokens. So our opponent's going to go incredibly wide. We need to maybe fly over with Underill or get protection from white or green. Don't have a green and white sword in the deck, but yeah, maybe this is still good enough. Green-white could have answers to artifacts, so then Forge Anew can get them back and helps us equip things for free. Still need to decide what to get with Cloud, since both green and white could appear in equal numbers. For now, just a Portico. Alright, there's my pro-white, so pro-green it is. Now the 1-2 punch of Pilgrim into Mother of Runes. We do have this portable hole we want to make use of. Chromox could also pitch the Forge Anew, so I can still play Cloud. Is that worth it? I mean, at this point I might just exile the Pilgrim, since I'm not going to be targeting anything anytime soon. Although this is maybe my last chance to target the Mother of Runes with a portable hole. So it is a bit of a tricky spot. Yeah, I think it's worth it to just get Cloud in play here. And then I think I go for Forge and Frontier for card advantage. And then let's just exile the Pilgrim, so they're further from ever doubling with Rhys as well. So then next turn I can equip the boots at the very least, and then play a sword out. Might have to start with Light and Shadow, otherwise Mother of Runes can chump and then give herself protection from white to tank the attack. Alright, opponent runs out Boseiju, so must have been their last land. And then Gala Greeters can still make treasure. So, yeah, Mother Runes with a green creature, of course. They can still give the green creature protection after it chumps. So I'm probably going to have to equip both swords before I can make a dent. But that's alright, I guess. So, start with the green one, since I know about it. Now we have to hope they can make some sort of artifact token, because that could still block once I equip both swords. Enduring Innocence for card advantage. So opponent's making good progress. Frodo could also equip things for free. Although I'm still leaning sword equip. Could also go Underhill equip, but then they get to eat Cloud with a protection. So that doesn't seem great. And then I should maybe start with the protection from white to play around opposing removal spells like Swords to Plowshares. So no point in attacking, because their opponent could just chump with Gala Greeters, activate Mother of Runes, give protection from white. And now a Voice of Resurgence will draw off Enduring Innocence as well. Alright, we keep drawing swords, not complaining. So I can finally Forge and Frontier, attack, and then see what we can find. There's no creature to get back with Light and Shadow, but it will still trigger twice, getting me some life. And then I get to exile the top 4 cards with Forge and Frontier. Can play 2 extra lanes. Okay. How important is Grand Abolisher? I guess it's pretty good against Mother of Runes. So I actually do want that in play. So our opponent's gonna activate Rhys now, make a token, draw a card, and make a replacement treasure. So next turn they can already activate to double, potentially. Mother of Runes protects itself. And then I can play the hammer before it goes away. And pass the turn, could put the boots on the Abolisher, I suppose. Give it a little bit of extra protection. So our opponent kinda needs to just overpower us, since they can block Cloud. And yeah, the Overlord's not a bad way to do it. Especially when Rhys can then start copying those insects as well. Gala Greeters gains life, Innocence draws cards. So they've got a very nice engine. Still gonna take it here. The last thing we want is giving them the elemental token. Alright, so we're still gonna keep going all in on Cloud with Fire and Ice at this time as well. Wishing I still had my Forge Renew to equip the Colossus Hammer for free, but oh well. And then we can attack. Can maybe move the boots, but I might need the mana elsewhere. So So we get a million triggers. So I can snipe Rhys and maybe the Mother of Runes itself or the Galagreeters. Yeah, let's go Rhys and Galagreeters. Find my own Mother of Runes. And find a Swords to Plowshares, so that can maybe deal with Overlord. Alright, so we're kind of doing it. Also would have been a pretty clean answer to a Voice of Resurgence or Enduring Innocence, but this has to be better. And then Frodo can suit up. Let's see, our opponent's going to be attacking with some of their white creatures. Could be risky to move the Sword of Light and Shadow, but it's maybe not a terrible idea. But now Cloud could be exposed to an opposing Swords to Plowshares. Esper Sentinel, still a white creature, so still can block through protection from white, despite being an artifact. And yeah, our opponent concedes, so double protection gets it done. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Glarb, Calamity's Augur. So a pretty scary deck, but we've got a pretty solid hand with Stoneforge Mystic in addition to Cloud. Not sure yet if we're gonna need a Loran. They might have some 2-mana ramp artifact. So yeah, I guess I could already Chrome Mox and play a 2-drop. I'm gonna go ahead and keep the Loran's Escape. And then play Stoneforge Mystic, since that already threatens to put some expensive equipment in play for 2 mana. So then it would make sense to get like a Machinist Arsenal or an Aether Spark, since those will benefit the most from the discount. And they kind of operate without needing additional investment. Yeah, let's get the Arsenal. Could have waited an extra turn to keep up Loran's Escape to protect the Stoneforge. I don't think Glarb decks tend to have too much cheap spot removal, since they kind of want to be running some more expensive spells. Alright, it's going to be a Fauna Shaman, so maybe more of a creature combo deck after all. So we can activate Stoneforge, and then there's not a whole lot else going on. Opponent passes. And there's Arsenal. Also plays around counter spells. Untap. Now I could try Cloud. Stoneforge can still put in the boots. Or maybe we go for Aether Spark now if Cloud resolves. Put an Aether Spark, equip my token. Yeah, kind of like that idea. We are shields down on Escape or Hexproof from the boots. But if they spend removal on my token, I'm not too sad. So we would get 8 loyalty if we get to connect here. So that works. So next turn Aether Spark could generate 10 mana. But we'll see what Fauna Shaman finds. Nowhere to run. Goes for Stoneforge. Was unable to take out our hero. They can still Fauna Shaman, maybe find an answer to my Aether Spark. This could actually be more of a Reanimator deck now that I look at their graveyard. So that's pretty scary. And yeah, Jin-Gitaxias can counter our equipment now that we no longer have Stoneforge to put in play for free. So that's going to make it tough. Opponent gets Reclamation Sage, so that can also blow up any of my artifacts. Alright, that's too bad. So, Lauren's Escape would have been able to protect my artifacts, but it's gonna be a little bit late. So we get to keep the Aether Spark, but I don't have a great place to spend 10 mana at the moment. So I might be better off drawing 2 cards, and then can still maybe play some other things out. Could also move Aether Spark onto Cloud, which gets to add the loyalty twice, which is potentially a better long term. But I feel like I need to draw something impactful this turn. Light and Shadow can get back Stoneforge Mystic, but our opponent can also chump pretty easily. I might want to put it on Cloud here, so that it can trigger several times going forward. Still okay trading my token for Reclamation Sage, since we would get 2 more loyalty. And then they're not jumping Cloud. But once again, shields down on Lauren's Escape. Alright, so they double block Cloud. Works for me. Could let Cloud go to the graveyard and then get it back with Light and Shadow. Although we already have Stoneforge Mystic, so that might be greedy if they blow up the sword somehow. And I could see myself using the 10 mana next turn to maybe play a hasty Cloud and searching up some other equipment we can attach. Alright, Chupacabra, now a nice answer to my leftover token. Maybe why they wanted to get rid of the pro-black. Alright, so what's the play? Might be just play the cheapest creature possible, suit it up with the boots, and go to town. If I play Sentinel, boots, equip, I can still equip Sword of Light and Shadow, get back Stoneforge Mystic. So that's pretty decent. And then I guess I could Aether Spark onto the Sentinel as well. And then I don't have to -10 just yet. Yeah, don't hate that plan. Because with the pro-black we can attack past the Chupacabra. And then our opponent's also going to have to pay a pretty steep tax to the Sentinel, as it's got 4 power. And we can keep Aether Spark in play a bit longer, and that's good enough to prompt a concession. I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Tiamat, 5-color dragons. What do we think of our hand? Turn 1 Savior or Zac, turn 2 probably go for Cloud, get an equipment. Could be like a Colossus Hammer, and then I can play it and play Kemba to equip it for free. Yeah, I guess that works. That's a relatively fast win condition. Don't expect the Tiamat to have too many random blockers to get in the way. But our opponent is going to be ramping to get up to 7 mana as quickly as possible. And once they do, we could be in trouble. Shadow Spear for Trample could actually be useful after we equip Colossus Hammer. By the way, if we wanted to, we could also be playing the Final Fantasy version of Colossus Hammer and some of the other equipment. So that's totally up to you. Opponent's got an Arcane Signet, so they could still have some 1 mana interaction. So play Hammer. Could maybe attack first and then play Kemba. Alright, so 13-13. That's a 2-turn clock. Savior to protect. Zac can do the same. Although if they have a way to exile Kemba, that's going to be a pretty big setback. Second Crossroads into a Defense of the Heart. Alright, that's a pretty interesting effect, but luckily for us we can just sack the Savior, and then we will only control 2 creatures, so they don't get to search up whatever they want and put it in play, or we can use Get Lost to destroy it. So I've got a few options here. So if I sack the Savior, I don't have a way to protect Kemba anymore. So maybe just going for the Get Lost is a safer play. I can still play Shadow Spear, even play Zac, and then next turn I'll be able to equip the Shadow Spear. Yeah, that seems fine to me. And our opponent concedes, alright, they were just relying on defense. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Ugin, Eye of the Storms, a pretty rough matchup. Loran is one of our better cards against it, but Mother Runes and Skrelv, unlike the Giver of Runes, don't help against colorless sources, so these are pretty much useless. So I would be keeping a hand solely based on Loran, which I don't think I want to do. Well, this is an improvement. We still have Loran, but we also have some other spells. Don't think Land Tax is super likely to trigger, since the colorless deck doesn't ramp by putting extra lands in play. But maybe at some point we'll miss a land drop and then we'll get more planes out of it. For now, I guess we can already play Cloud and start thinking about what to get. Could get my Planeswalker, the Aether Spark, since I don't expect too many early blockers, so then this has a chance to build up loyalty, and Ugin cannot remove it. Could also go for something like a Buster Sword for card advantage. So we do have a couple options. No way to equip Hammer for free at the moment. So yeah, I'm torn between Buster Sword and Aether Spark. Can't equip either one of them next turn, unless we draw Mox. Now let's get the Aether Spark. Fight Planeswalkers with Planeswalkers. Because if our opponent plays an artifact we want to blow up with Loran, next turn I can play and equip Aether Spark, whereas Buster Sword would require an extra mana. Opponent with Archway, so I guess that's good technology to fight land tax. Although we drew Underhill, so that's a pretty good one too. Can play it now, equip next turn instead of Aether Spark. Or I can just go Signet, Boots equip, which I also don't mind. Essentially means Cloud has Ward 2, since the Boots would trigger twice. On the off chance that they have like a Warping Whale, or not sure what other colorless removal there is nowadays. Opponent runs out a Mana Geode. 3, 4, 5, so they're not capable of casting Ugin just yet. So I can maybe wait on a Loran, and then this turn... Yeah, Aether Spark might still be better than Underhill, just because we get to build up Loyalty a bunch. And then with the Loyalty I can cash it in for mana to deploy Underhill next turn. Since the Loyalty on Aether Spark gets improved twice. So we immediately go up to 13 Loyalty here, and that's good enough. Alright, I'll take it. So we get to see this mono-white equipment deck in action, and yeah, the addition of all the new swords makes this deck a lot more powerful, as we didn't even have access to protection from white before, so now we all of a sudden have a bunch of different options. The swords we've gotten are also just individually very powerful. Feast and Famine is historically a very powerful card that has seen play across multiple formats, and then now pair that with some of the ones we already had, and we can assemble a lethal creature very quickly. So yeah, quite impressed with Cloud as a commander, and it's a deck that's only going to keep getting better as we get more equipment in future sets. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.